Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah. It's I was asked today to say each time a smaller fraction of men each time I mentioned that there are some men in the audience.
Okay, we'll allow that.
We'll allow it. Yeah, they're allowed to be here. So you've been an advocate for women and their specifically soft power within Israeli society ever since becoming First Lady and before that. What do you mean by the soft power women bring forward?
Okay, so before going into that, I must tell you, I'm still under the impression of a very moving meeting we just had at the President's residence before I came here with a group of parents of the military observers, the Tatzpitaniot, from the Nachal Oz base. And it was a very moving, hurtful, painful meeting because they seek justice for their girls, and we've known them for quite a while, and we pray with them that they will at some point reach a point of justice. I'm very hopeful that a national inquiry committee will be formed because we need to find out the truth, because one of the topics that was raised in this meeting was the girls, the young women, the soldiers, they came forward with what they saw. They spoke to their commanders, but is it because they're young women that it was brushed away? Maybe, I don't know, but we need to find that out.
Absolutely.
So going back to your question, soft power. What is soft power? It is a very vague definition. I think what I've found out is that I can use my very vague definition of a non-role in the president's residence because I'm really a volunteer. There's no definition of the spouse or partner of the president who was elected. And so I have to find my own definition of my role. And so I found out that indeed I can use soft power, as I think many women do. It is maybe not an executive power, maybe it's not a defined power, but it is definitely something that allows you to move things around. For instance, you can use it, I can use it at least, by even just phoning the right person in the government to move something around, to change a decision about budget. Not that I can do it on a daily basis, but I find that sometimes you can really move mountains with the simple call and the simple getting together of women as a group. And this is what I defined as soft power.
So I want to kind of get into that a little bit because, oftentimes when we talk about women succeeding in the workplace, we talk about, quote, beating men at their own game. And you don't see it that way. So what exactly is the power of women working with women and empowering one another?
So, I look, for instance, at Orit Soliziano. Okay, she'll be speaking here later on. Orit, for those of you who don't know, heads the Center for Rape Crisis Victims and does a wonderful job. Why am I looking at Orit? Because I want to give this as an example of a group of women getting together and working together for this most important goal of giving voice to those who don't have a voice anymore, meaning especially after October 7th, the victims of October 7th, the sexual violence victims. And I'm so proud of a group of very brave Israeli women who keep this topic on world stage at all times, because we can't let the world forget what happened and the use of sexual violence, which shocked all of us. the premeditated, the systematic use of sexual violence as a weapon of war on October 7th and unfortunately afterwards is something that we as Israeli women have to keep on world platform at all times. And we don't only speak for Israeli women, we speak for women, period, because there's bound to be in this turbulent world another conflict. And it will give rise to the next use, and we have to prevent it. We have to prevent the use of sexual violence. And so when I say that women can work together and our power as a group, it is so much more powerful than working alone. And
Absolutely.
We can do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So as you mentioned, since the war began, you've been a very vocal advocate for victims of sexual violence and rape on October 7th, going on the international stage and behind the international stage, as you said, to make it clear to the world exactly what women suffered that day. Now, after the latest round of hostage releases, more and more women have returned with significant trauma from being held hostage, like animals in cages, and going through God only knows what. What steps do you see as the most vital right now to ensure that these women receive the care, justice, and recognition that they deserve?
So first of all, I think what we all adhere to is treatment before justice. First of all, the women have to be treated and we have to give them their time. I was just reading on the way here the interview with Ilana, Matan Sengauker's girlfriend, who was also held as hostage, and she's fighting for his freedom now. And I know Ilana well, but I think with time she's coming out with more stories, more of what she experienced, and we have to give those women the time. They have to be treated. We have to give them ample time to connect with their feelings. Not all of them are capable to and want to share bravely as Amit Susana did. She came out and she immediately wanted to share. But it's also an individual reaction. So when I was reading Ilana's interview today, I felt that I'm sure there are more and more stories that will come out, but we have to give them time. It is on their terms that we have to hear them.
Absolutely. Each one has kind of their own process that they need to go to. Absolutely. Women have oftentimes been neglected medically, including in the mental health sphere. So this is vital. But even before the treatment, the difficulty is the research itself that has made up our medical understanding of women's health and and humans today in general. They always say that the medicinal study of the human body is actually the medicinal study of the male body. So what is being done in Israel right now to combat this discriminatory pattern?
So we just recently had a very important conference at the President's residence with a group called Madonna. It's an NGO that deals with women and health and the Ministry of Health. And it's all about creating now a task force with the Ministry of Health to gender-based sensitive health processes, the use of drugs, the tests of drugs, as you said, not to use only the male body, but to use the human body. And I felt that I opened up the President's residence because this is the residence of the entire people of Israel. And that's men and women, of course. And we have to be very sensitive to gender-based health process, and I'm glad that the Ministry of Health took upon itself now to indeed move forward with this task force. And there are, as you said, you asked me about soft power, so here's another example of soft power. There will soon be a process where the Ministry of Health with an NGO called Keren Bria will create what they call the purple card, so that victims of violence can actually come with the purple card, present it to a doctor or in the emergency room, and everyone will know that this woman presenting the card has actually gone through sexual violence, and she won't have to repeat the story again and again. She won't be frowned upon as something different. And this is something that I was able to create the connection so that soon we will be advertising this whole process, and training will be held for the medical professionals in Kupot Cholim and hospitals.
Amazing, truly an amazing initiative. In general, you've been an incredible advocate your entire time in the president's residence for women. I'll embarrass you a little bit. My first memory of hearing that Isaac Herzog became president wasn't of anything that he did, but was you received bouquets upon bouquets of flowers when you reached the president's residence, and you took them and you gave them to homes for battered women, and that immediately told me what kind of first lady you were going to be, and that was a very powerful statement. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
So one last question for you, and it's a very easy one. What message do you have for all the women here in the audience tonight?
Okay, so first of all, it's wonderful to see a room full of strong, vibrant, energetic women. But what I really wish for all of us is to see many more women around the decision-making tables. This is really what we need. In October 2025, we will be celebrating 20 years to the UN Resolution 1325. That resolution was the first one that really marked the right of women to participate in processes of security and conflicts around the world, and also the right to defend women. And here we are, 20 years later, a lot of work still to be done. And that's why I wish for all of us to participate in every place where we can bring our voice forward, because our voice is always a little bit different, and it always adds another point of view. And it doesn't have to be necessary in politics. It can be in many other places. It can begin in the parents' meetings in school, or in Vad Bait, or in whatever municipal action is needed. But we need more women to be seen around these very, very important tables and decision-making tables. For instance, it baffles me that we don't have more women involved in the hostage dealings, because it brings another point of view. And at this point, I would also like to say that we, as Israeli society, will not be whole again, will not be able to begin our rehabilitation until we have every last hostage back home.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, First Lady of the State of Israel, Michal Herzog.
Thank you.